Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. And this time, we're going to be tackling something pretty complex.
Yeah.
How AI can be used to help manage the IMDG code.
Right.
You might not be familiar with it, but
It's a mouthful.
yeah, it is. Trust me, it's a really, really big deal in the shipping world.
Absolutely huge.
So IMDG Code, or the International Maritime Dangerous Goods Code, is basically the rule book for shipping anything that could be hazardous on a cargo ship.
Yeah, it's interesting. Most people don't realize how much we rely on the IMDG code every day. It's really there to make sure that we're shipping these dangerous goods safely and responsibly, preventing accidents that could harm people or the environment.
It's true, but as you can imagine, the IMDG code is incredibly detailed and it's constantly being updated.
Constantly, yeah.
Which makes compliance a real challenge.
It does.
There are literally thousands of regulations to keep track of.
Yeah.
And if you get it wrong, there can be some really serious consequences.
Absolutely. We're talking big fines. We're talking shipping delays that can cost companies a fortune. And in the worst case scenario, accidents that could damage the environment or even put lives at risk.
Yeah, the stakes are definitely high. But that's where our sources suggest that AI could really be a game changer.
Interesting.
They point to something called an ontology-driven vertical AI agent as a potential solution for managing all this complexity of the IMDG code.
Yeah, now I know that sounds a little bit complicated.
It does.
But let's try to break that down a little bit. So an ontology is essentially a way to organize knowledge so that AI can understand it. It's like creating a detailed map of the IMDG code that the AI can use to navigate.
So instead of humans having to sift through, mountains and mountains of regulations, the AI can kind of do it for them, almost like an intelligent assistant.
Yeah, that's the idea. And this assistant isn't just reading through a list of rules, it's actually understanding the relationships between those rules and the logic behind them, which means it can help with things like checking for compliance in real time, it can optimize loading plans, and even generate all the required documentation.
Okay, that's starting to make a little more sense.
Yeah.
So to understand how this AI agent could actually work, I think it would help to dive into some specific examples of the challenges involved with IMDG code compliance.
Sure.
What are some things that make this code so difficult to manage?
Well, one of the biggest challenges is just the sheer volume of information. Did you know that there are 9 different classes of dangerous goods?
9.
9.
That's a lot.
Each class has its own set of specific rules about how those materials need to be packaged, segregated, and stored on a ship.
9 classes, that's a lot to keep track of. I can imagine how easy it would be to get overwhelmed.
Exactly. And it's not just about knowing the rules for each class, it's also about understanding how those rules interact with each other. For example, certain substances can't be stored near each other because they could react dangerously.
Oh, so you can't just throw a bunch of chemicals together in a container and hope for the best.
Exactly.
You need to know how they will behave in different situations and under different conditions.
You got it. And that's where the IMDG code gets really intricate. It outlines specific segregation and stowage regulations to prevent those kinds of hazardous situations.
Makes sense.
For example, you wouldn't want to store flammable liquids next to oxidizing agents, as that could create a major fire risk.
Yeah, that sounds like a logistical nightmare.
It can be. It sounds like a logistical nightmare. So how does this ontology-driven AI help manage all these complex regulations?
Well, let's break down how this AI actually works. So we talked about how an ontology is like a map of the IMDG code.
Right.
But how do you actually build this map for the AI to use?
Right.
It seems like a huge task.
It is a massive undertaking, but there are smart ways to approach it. So first, you need to break down the IMDG code into its fundamental parts, all those 9 hazard classes, packing groups, segregation codes, all the specific details we talked about.
So it's kind of like creating this giant index or glossary of terms from the IMDG code.
That's a good way to think about it, yeah. But it goes beyond just defining the terms. You also need to establish the relationships between them. For example, a specific substance like gasoline would be linked to its hazard class, which is flammable liquid, and then to its specific UN number, which is UN 1203.
And then that hazard class would have all those specific IMDG code rules that apply to any substance within that category.
Exactly. It's all about connecting the dots. And then you layer on those additional relationships like packing groups, segregation kinds, and so on. And all of this creates this complex web of information that reflects how the IMDG code actually works.
Okay, so we've built this web of information, but how does the AI use it to make decisions?
This is where things get really interesting. So the ontology is transformed into a knowledge graph, which is a visual representation of that web we just talked about.
Okay.
Each concept becomes a point on the graph, and the lines between those points represent the relationships.
So instead of just a bunch of text, it's more like a diagram or a flow chart that the AI can actually see.
Exactly. The AI can process and understand these visual representations much easier. Let's say you want to know if you can store batteries next to a certain type of paint. The AI can trace the connections on the knowledge graph, analyze the properties of each substance, check their hazard classifications, and instantly figure out if it's safe to store them together.
So it's kind of like the AI is solving a puzzle, using the knowledge graph to find the right combination of rules and regulations for each situation.
That's a great analogy, and the amazing part is that the AI can do this incredibly fast, analyzing vast amounts of information in a fraction of a second.
Wow, that's way faster than any human could. So no more, flipping through pages and pages of the IMDG code trying to find the right information.
Yeah. Exactly, and that means fewer mistakes and delays. Now we've talked about the ontology and the knowledge graph, but what about the agent part of this ontology-driven vertical AI agent? What exactly does that mean?
That's a good question. So we know that the agent is the AI system that's actually doing the work. But what does that work look like in practice?
Well, the agent is the one that's interacting with the real world, using all that knowledge encoded in the ontology. Think of it like this. A cargo container arrives at the port, ready to be loaded onto a ship. The AI agent can instantly access and understand the container's manifest, which lists all its contents.
And because it understands the IMDG code, it can cross-reference every item on that manifest with the correct regulations.
Right. It checks if everything is properly classified, packed, and labeled according to the IMDG code. It can even analyze potential problems based on what's already loaded on the ship, for instance. It could flag a potential conflict, like a container of flammable liquids being placed too close to explosives.
That's incredible. So it's like having a super efficient inspector who never misses a detail, constantly monitoring for potential problems before they even happen.
That's the idea. And the AI can do even more. Remember, all that paperwork required by the IMDG code, the agent can take care of that too.
You mean like automatically generating those complicated forms and declarations?
Exactly. By pulling information from the container manifest and the ontology, the agent can create those documents quickly and accurately, saving time and reducing the risk of errors.
That would be a huge help for shipping companies, it sounds like. This AI agent has the potential to really streamline the entire process of managing dangerous goods. But I have to ask, what happens if the IMDG code gets updated? Does someone have to manually update the whole system every time a rule changes?
That's a great question. Luckily, the answer is no. One of the big advantages of this approach is that the ontology can be designed to be flexible and adaptable.
So it's not just a static system. It can actually learn and evolve as the IMDG code changes.
Precisely. There are ways to automate the updating process. Imagine using machine learning to automatically scan for changes in the IMDG code and update the ontology accordingly.
That's amazing. It's like having this self-learning system that's constantly improving and keeping up with the latest regulations. We've talked a lot about what this AI can do, but how do we know that it'll actually work in the real world? Shipping is such a complex industry with a lot of moving parts.
You're right, and that's why testing and validation are crucial. Before we can roll this technology out on a large scale, we need to make sure it can handle the demands of real-world shipping operations.
So what would that testing look like?
Well, it would start with smaller pilot projects at specific ports or terminals. We could deploy the AI agent in a controlled environment and monitor its performance closely.
And during those pilot projects, you could compare the AI's performance to the traditional way of managing the IMDG code.
Right. Exactly. We'd want to gather data on how accurate the AI is, how efficient it is, and how well it identifies and prevents potential risks. Any issues that come up during testing would need to be addressed before we could think about wider adoption.
This all sounds very promising, but I'm wondering if the shipping industry is really ready for this kind of technological shift. There's often resistance to new technology, especially when it comes to something as critical as safety.
It's true, there will be challenges, but I think collaboration is key. We need to bring together everyone involved, shipping companies, port authorities, regulators, and even the people who work on the docks. We need to work together to make sure this technology is designed and implemented responsibly.
So it's about building trust and demonstrating that this technology can make shipping safer and more efficient for everyone.
Exactly. And it's important to emphasize that this is about empowering people with better tools, not replacing them. By automating those tedious and repetitive tasks, we can free up human workers to focus on more complex issues that require their experience and judgment.
So it's about humans and AI working together to create a safer and more efficient shipping industry.
Precisely. And that's a goal I think everyone can get behind. We've covered a lot of ground in this segment, from the technical details of how the AI works to the broader implications for the shipping industry. Before we move on to our final thoughts, I want to hear your biggest takeaway. What stands out to you about the potential of this technology?
What really strikes me is how this technology could help prevent accidents and protect the environment. The IMDG code is so important for safety, but managing it effectively can be incredibly difficult. By using AI to automate these complex tasks, we can significantly reduce the risk of human error and create a much safer environment for everyone involved in shipping dangerous goods.
That's a great point. It's all about using technology to enhance human capabilities and create a better future. Now, let's take a moment to let all of this sink in for our listener. Imagine a world where AI is helping to ensure the safe and responsible transport of dangerous goods around the globe. What possibilities does that open up? What challenges do we still need to address? We'll be back in a moment to delve into some final thoughts on this exciting topic.
Okay, so we've really explored the ins and outs of the IMDG code and how this domain AI agent can revolutionize the way we manage it. We've talked about the potential benefits, improved safety, increased efficiency, and fewer headaches for everyone involved.
Yeah, it's true. The potential is really enormous. But as with any powerful technology, it's crucial to think about the broader implications.
Absolutely. There's always more to consider than just the practical applications.
Yeah.
What are some of the bigger questions this technology raises for you?
Well, one thing that comes to mind is the evolving role of human expertise. If an AI can understand the IMDG code better than any human, what does that mean for the people who currently specialize in this field?
Yeah, that's a question a lot of people are asking these days. Will AI make certain jobs obsolete?
It's a valid concern, but I think it's more nuanced than that, instead of replacing humans entirely. I see this technology as an opportunity to enhance their capabilities. Imagine a world where IMDG code experts can partner with AI agents, leveraging the AI's ability to analyze vast amounts of data and identify potential risks while still using their own judgment and experience to make the final decisions.
So it's not about human versus machine. It's about human plus machine working together to create a safer and more efficient system.
Exactly. It's about creating a synergy between human expertise and artificial intelligence. By automating the more tedious and repetitive tasks, we can free up human workers to focus on the things that require creativity, critical thinking, and a deep understanding of the nuances of the IMDG code.
It's like giving these experts a powerful new tool that allows them to do their jobs even better, and that ultimately leads to a safer and more efficient shipping industry for everyone.
Precisely. I think this technology has the potential to really raise the bar for safety and compliance in the maritime world.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from the intricate details of the IMDG code to the exciting possibilities of AI. It's been a fascinating journey.
It has. And it's really just the beginning. As AI technology continues to advance, we can expect to see even more innovative applications emerge in the shipping industry and beyond.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listener with one final thought to ponder. We've talked about how AI can transform the way we manage dangerous goods, making the world a safer place. But this is just one example of how AI is changing the way we interact with complex systems.
It's a glimpse into the future, a future where AI is helping us solve some of the world's most challenging problems.
And that future is full of both incredible opportunities and important questions that we need to address as a society. So we encourage you, our listener, to keep exploring these ideas. Think about how AI is impacting your own life and the world around you. What are the possibilities you see? What are the challenges that need to be addressed?
Those are conversations we need to be having.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of AI and the IMDG code. We hope you found it insightful and thought-provoking. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.